Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Design for the Times. I'm your host, Richard Christopher Scuderi. I'm very happy to have in studio someone that I worked with quite a long time ago, but thought was quite talented and brought his art to probably a new level. His name is Todd Citrocelli.
Citrocelli. Yep, close.
And he is with Califon GLC, and what he does is polished concrete floors. Welcome to our show, Todd.
Thanks for having me.
It's nice to see you after all this time. It's kind of serendipitous that this all came to be, and again, it came to be very quickly because I'm starting to work on a wonderful new restaurant in New Providence, New Jersey, and we're taking up old flooring, old carpet, and under the carpet are these sort of glueyed, yucky-looking concrete floors, and I thought, what's that guy, Califon GLC, didn't he do a nice job on the project we worked on? We had worked on a project in Lebanon, New Jersey called Metropolitan Seafood and Gourmet, really nice upscale fishmonger and all sorts of other things. And I always remembered, you know, how transformative that was, and that was about 10 years or so ago.
I'd say, yeah.
And at the time I thought, polished concrete, do tile. I mean, I thought, what the heck is this, right? It was amazing, and I don't think no tile, as beautiful as tile can be, would create the look that created, especially for a fishmonger. It was just so right, and it works so well with the other spaces.
For sure. Yeah.
So Todd, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to say, how did you get started? How long ago did you get started? And how did you first hear about polished concrete? Did someone bring it to your attention? You thought, well, what is that? Where was the origin of polished concrete floors?
You know, I did coatings for hotels and hotel pools for many years.
Okay.
And the coatings had issues. They failed a lot. So when I would go to shows, there was guys there selling polished equipment, and I just took interest in it, and I just love the look.
Right.
Absolutely. And I just love doing a job, leaving it, and not having a call back for something that's failed product-wise. And it comes out.
Where was the first time you saw somebody use an application where they did polished concrete and you saw that finish and how interesting it was and the look? Where did you maybe see something first and you thought, wow, this is beautiful?
Las Vegas.
Okay.
Las Vegas. They were doing it in the MGM.
Oh, in the MGM.
In the main mall area.
And what did it kind of look like?
They were grinding, and it was turning concrete into glass marble. And I just couldn't believe the finished effect.
It's amazing what actually the grinding and turning create, right?
Sure. I mean, just basically the polishing process marbleizes the slab to where it becomes almost like a bowling ball.
Amazing.
And it just has a reflectivity as glass.
So let's start with the process from the beginning. Are most of the projects for polished concrete, are most of the projects you work on somebody else's concrete that they poured a long time ago that you're coming into, I would guess, cleaning and then polishing? Or are you ever going in and you are pouring the concrete yourself?
All of the above.
All of the above.
We get calls from us to pour and pump. We have to get the concrete into locations they can't do. And basically we just facilitate getting them that finish. So if somebody else pours it, that's fine. We'll come in after and take care of it. All the buildings in Jersey City, we do. And then if it's more or less a homeowner, you're taking up old products and trying to get down to the concrete.
Is it almost nicer to have old concrete because it has aging and changing and a history, so it's much more interesting, the result, because of what's going on there? Sometimes if you look at beautiful natural stone, you see fossils and stuff. Does the same thing hold true for a new slab of concrete as one that was poured in 1924?
Absolutely. The old pours they mixed in river rock.
Right.
So it had great colors.
So you're polishing and seeing that.
Polishing, you're seeing, basically looks like you're turning into terrazzo flooring.
Sure, I'm thinking about terrazzo.
But it's much more character.
So it would actually be the best.
I like that,
Let's talk about the layers, and then you have some wonderful examples that we're going to talk about and our viewers are going to be able to say. The process, obviously, if you're doing a fresh pour, concrete sets gray and then dries to sort of a white color.
Right.
For the most part.
For the most part, yeah.
If you were going to create an end look that was like a dark charcoal color or a dark color, would you add a color additive to the fresh concrete?
Sure. I mean, if there's a color request, that's very common, we'll put it into the mix while it's being poured.
While it's being mixed. And
while it's being in the batch truck.
So let's say you wanted something really modern and you would add like an additive that made it sort of like a dark gray color.
Right.
And then how long would that have to cure before you were able to polish it to give it the finished look?
You know, it's recommended 28 days.
Oh, that long.
But from a 4-inch pour.
Okay.
But I've seen where you can put in additives. We don't recommend it, but you can accelerate it up to about 10 to 15 days, but we don't actually do that.
Is it more exciting for you from the fresh pour to get the color that you're looking for by tinting it, or is it much more appealing to you to start with something that you take the gluey floor off and you do a cleaning process, and then you're curious to see what comes up?
I have to say I like that the best. I love when there's products on top, nobody really knows what's down there, and then when we do it, the difference is so extreme.
Sure.
It cleans very well and it just pops.
Where would you say the best applications for? I would imagine anything retail, polished concrete is probably ideal, right?
Sure.
It's relatively easy to clean.
Very easy to clean.
And then we were talking about it's important when you clean it not to use a high pH product.
Right. Do not use floor cleaners
right.
in something like that. Anything natural, you do not want to use a high pH.
Right.
It'll actually just dull it instantly.
It dulls it and probably like a build-up over time.
Sure. Or waxes.
Waxes, right.
Floor waxes. Those are made for machined tiles. They're baked a certain way and they're made for those products. Concrete is not.
So for any sort of, I think, commercial application, a hotel, I was in a hotel in Long Island City about 3 or 4 months ago, a really modern hotel, and they had some polished concrete. It just made the space, right? The industrial look, maybe a clothing boutique, restaurant, shops or so on, maybe a mall, you know, it'd be great for a mall. But how about on the residential side? Are you seeing people, I don't know what percentage of your clientele is wanting to put it in their own home?
You know, it's becoming basically mainstream. I mean, at this point, they're making choices to get it.
Sure. So I would imagine, just off the top of my head, that if they were putting it in somewhere in their house, they would be putting it below grade. They would be putting it in the basement. Is that where you see most of your work?
I see it
residentially?
Ranches, entire floors are built out of concrete. Even
or if you're on slab.
On a slab.
Right.
I've seen we take on the entire floor and polish the whole house.
Isn't that great?
It's very sharp.
Maybe you could do sort of mid-century kind of with that, right?
For sure. And they saw cuts, and you can make any design you want.
Amazing.
And you can dye it.
So not just basement. But let's go to the basement, because this is something we talked about before camera started to roll here, was that the fact that, you know, the climate change and the storms that we're having and the flooding like never before. And so many people, so many of my clients throughout the state had to redo their basements. And they went with carpet because it was inexpensive and warm, which is a disaster, creating mold and so on.
Sure. And it, not only that, it doesn't create the mold, it actually acts as a wick.
Okay.
So when you put products down in the basement setting and you don't have the proper vapor barriers, the vapor moisture will float through the slab and collect, and now you have black mold that you're breathing in the carpet.
Right. Because moisture comes from under the earth, right?
And even not the wet moisture, even if you can't see it, there's a vapor coming up through. That's the damaging vapor, moisture, and you're breathing that.
So let's say we finished our basement, kids want to go down there, there's a flood, God forbid, or maybe the hot water heater, you want to wait for the weekend, and that's when it gave out. Now you have this wet carpet, you remove the carpet was glued down. What's your next step to get to a surface that you can do something with? What do you do?
Our machines will strip the glue right off. And then you just bring it up from there, meaning... So
is that its own polishing to get the glue off, or is that a different application?
It's the same machine, but it's just like when you're sanding wood, you have to use a very rough grit to bring it up to your final grit. Sure. It's the same process in a polished setting.
So you remove the outer layer. Or let's talk about the project we're working on now, which is the restaurant, which has the carpet squares that were glued down.
Right.
So when we take the glue off, when we demo, when we take the rug off, and you have all that glue, you'll sort of sand that down.
I will have to take in a very rough grind, a diamond. It's a diamond head.
Sure.
And it'll actually strip off all of the coatings down to the core of the slab.
No acid washing, no any sort of chemicals or?
Nothing like that.
Oh, I thought that would be part of the process. That's very interesting.
No, we don't like to use products like that if they're needed.
What about in a residential application having that be dustless? How do you make that work? Let's say somebody wants to do that in their home, and it is on the first floor, let's say on slab. Is there a way to sort of isolate that? Because I would imagine you would have a lot of cement dust. I mean, there's no way you couldn't.
We just did a home in Tewksbury, and it was a very ornate home, many things that they were looking to protect, and we basically had to, we can collect about 99% of the dust.
Oh, can you?
That airborne through our vacuum system. The rest of it is on the floor, and we could collect that. And now we have basically units about the size of this table here that will collect any extra airborne dust. That's a new code from OSHA.
Isn't that
so
interesting?
You turn it on, it cleans out 1,600 cubic feet and any airborne dust. And you can stand there and talk like we are with grinding machines.
Let's say somebody is doing their basement, and again, there was a water issue, they take it out. Would there ever be, instead of dealing with the original, let's say the concrete is uneven, or there's lots of cracks in the concrete, do you ever do a top pour and level it out and then polish over that as opposed to the original?
You can.
You had mentioned something earlier on about 4 inches. So let's say there was an original pour and it was less than 4 inches. Now I'd imagine just by grinding you're taking it down. Do you need that 4 inches to make it work?
No, I mean, you could go down to 3 inches.
Okay.
I mean, we've ground 3 inches of concrete. You could also grind overlays, or I mean, there's high strength PSI that you can grind 2 inches, but that's typically not what's poured in a basement. They typically pour 3,000, 3,500 PSI mix.
Right, just sort of code.
They code it, right.
But do you ever add, or do you ever do a fresh pour on a surface?
Sure.
What would be the reason you would do that? Just for leveling, or maybe is the concrete? Did you ever go to a place and say, "Sorry, rejected, can't do it"?
Absolutely.
Oh, you do?
Oh, I do that all the time.
What would be the reason that somebody couldn't have it done?
My first initial is to test the concrete and see if it's what's called dusting.
Okay.
If your concrete is dusting, basically it means when they were pouring the concrete, they mixed in too much water, or they just didn't, it heated up too quickly, something happened. Whatever I do for you, you will not be satisfied. I know that's coming.
So you walk away from that.
You walk away.
Or could you do a top pour on that and make
It'll come right off.
Oh, so it's not doable.
The dusting never stops.
Oh, the dusting never stops. It's a continuing
If
process.
you clean the floor,
right,
and you take your hand,
right,
and you wipe it across the floor, and it's white again, your floor is dusting.
So you
now
can't fix that.
Now it just keeps coming out. It doesn't stop.
Now, is it true about concrete in general? I heard this when I was a kid. My dad, we're both Italian. My dad was a general contractor. That concrete continues to harden, like it just continues to harden.
To a point. I mean, depending on the thickness. I mean, at 28 days, you're basically good for a 4-inch pour, 5-inch pour.
So you were saying if it was new concrete, it's 28 days before you would do the application of the polishing.
That's what we do. That's I mean, that's basically.
So it reaches sort of a certain maximum hardness?
Right.
Okay.
Before.
And then for something that's, you look at it, it's not dusting, it's in good shape, you can do it same day?
Absolutely. Get right on it.
And typically, unless the space is humongous, like a one-day process?
Oh, no. It's involved.
It's
involved. I mean, 1,000 square feet could take us 5 days.
Oh, that involved. Okay.
Yeah, it's very involved. I mean, each step, imagine each step of grinding, you have to do every 1,000 square feet. So if there's 13 steps, I have 13,000 square feet of work.
Yeah, that's a lot.
For 13 steps to get you, depending on what I'm looking at. Sometimes
how do you know when you're done? How do you know when it's ready?
I look for reflectivity. When I'm done at the end, if I can look at the floor and I could see the light bulbs, I know that I've reached the sheen level I'm looking for, depending on what you want.
You were generous enough to bring us a lot of pictures, so maybe you can pull up some of the images and we can talk about it. So it's fun to talk about in theory, but when you see it, I think you feel quite differently. Now this is good because this is a project that we did together. This was CWI Kitchens. It was a cabinet manufacturer.
Right.
And then I did the design work and we converted into Metropolitan Seafood and Gourmet, a wonderful fishmonger and gourmet market. So let's go to maybe the next image there. And that's what we did, I guess about 10 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So I
remember the concrete, how horrible the concrete was.
Yeah, I'm going to say that I was surprised you rejected stuff because the concrete wasn't in great shape.
But it wasn't dusting.
That's the difference.
That's the difference. It was I don't mind if it's in bad shape, but I can't have it deteriorating.
Okay.
You know, this was in great shape.
Sure. All right, let's see if we can take another image. I love the tones. Awesome. Now I want to talk about something I get to talk about, and I think you called it saw cuts. Because concrete is big expanses, I remember you coming in with you had to cut it, right? You had to score it. Or was it scored already?
The plumbers had come into this job and had to put piping throughout the job, but he wanted it very rustic.
Okay.
So we came in with a different mix and poured all the channels in a certain way.
Okay, that's right. But now, would that, let's say different circumstances, would you have to, for sort of a relief, or is that when concrete is poured in general, you have to have sort of cuts?
You do have to have expansion in most slabs.
Okay.
But if we don't see the correct expansion joints and we do see some hairline cracks, let's say coming off of something, we can cut those in before we start.
And you would cut it in
Absolutely.
yourself. Okay.
Sure.
Let's see if the next one is there. Okay, cool.
So you can see the reflectivity of the glass in
Yeah.
the floor. So that's how I know the sheen level
Now
is
I've
ready.
walked on that. Now that looks like glass. Now I've walked on that, and it was not slippery at all.
No.
Although it looks slippery. How come it's not slippery?
The surface is polished, but yet it's not a topical coating like a paint or an acrylic.
Okay.
That's what's slippery. If I rolled on a sealer, it'd be a sheet of ice.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like it would be a sheet of ice, but I mean, I remember putting up the Christmas decorations there and walking with shoe. It was fine. It was no problem. And I actually like the channels because I think it makes it rustic and sort of industrial looking.
He was looking for the Fulton Fish Market look.
Right.
That's if I remember.
Okay.
So.
Okay, let's see what else we have in our mix there. Okay, that's another shot of the floor. Just beautiful, spectacular.
You see the reflectivity of the woman walking?
Yes.
We can see her. Now I know
You
we've
can see
reached
her actually upside down. I mean, look at that.
Right.
It's really like glass. Okay, let's see what else. Now this is a different job. Now where is this?
This is in Water Street in New York, and it was flooded underwater during Hurricane Sandy.
Lower Manhattan. Okay,
Lower
wonderful.
Manhattan, completely underwater.
So that floor was doable, even though I see unbelievable cracks there.
Cracks and coatings and concrete, but once we tested it, the concrete was poured in the 1800s.
Sure.
And it was very solid, and it was very thick.
Okay, and it wasn't dusting.
It was not dusting,
I
no.
know a new word now. Okay, and then let's go to the next one. Okay, so tell me what you did next.
Oh, now we just started the grinding process, getting the coatings off.
Okay, so you got the old coatings off with the grinding process.
Yes.
Okay, let's see what's next. Okay, now
the coating's off.
Okay.
So now we're down to the slab itself.
It seems like it changed color, or is it just the image?
That's the color of this concrete back in that day.
Which is sort of kind of a goldy, kind of tanny kind of a color. Okay.
I think they used to mix on site. They didn't used to use trucks. They used to mix it with
batches?
sand and batches and bring it
And
in.
is that so? Am I getting the sand color in that? Am I picking up
what I
the
think you're
sand?
seeing,
Because it
yeah.
looks like the color of sand. It's amazing. Okay.
And then they sealed it. And it just shows.
Amazing. I actually
They wanted the cracks. They wanted the very
No,
rustic.
I find the cracks attractive.
I do too. But you have to like that look. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not for everyone, but I like
If it was just so perfect, I don't think it would be so industrial.
Right.
So to me, the cracks
exactly.
are interesting. It's like if you have a beautiful piece of stone, you like to see the
That thing had
interest in
incredible
it.
character, for
Right.
sure, with that floor. Many colors, because you could tell they poured it in sections, even here. They probably did the kitchen one day, and they did out here in another day.
And then it has its own unique characteristics.
For sure.
Okay, let's see what's next. Now, is this the same
That
job?
was the same job down below.
Now,
when we
how
were doing the
come
coating.
these are so much more? These look so much more slick and polished.
This one actually has a solvent-based sealer they requested
Okay.
to get the sheen up. For whatever reason, they
Was there a
wanted
reason
that.
in this particular area they wanted more sheen?
It was the reflectivity. They weren't getting the older concrete. Sometimes you can't get the reflectivity that you
Okay.
saw in the Metropolitan, because this was 100 years old.
Right.
They wanted that look to get reflect the lights, so they had no choice.
That looks like an ice skating rink. You could walk on that without a problem.
You can. You put in a slip-resistant product in the.
I mean, don't
sealer.
get me wrong; it's just gorgeous, but I mean, it does look very slick.
It does, but if you stepped on it, there is a glass beads that we put in it to make it not slick.
Oh, isn't that
So you can't see
interesting?
it, so.
And actually, it looks more. It has beautiful patterning, but it looks more consistent too, for some reason. I think.
Yeah, for whatever reason, this ground, we were able to grind this to get the rocks, and the way they must have poured it, the rocks are at the surface. So that actually dictates what rocks show up. How they
Is
do
it hard for you to bid a job or to talk about the outcome because there's so many unknowns? You really couldn't guarantee how that's going to come out, could you?
Absolutely not.
So how do you sell that? Because you say, okay, I'm going to give you polished concrete, but I can't really tell you what it's going to look like.
That's exactly how you tell it.
Wow.
Because there's no way for me to tell you what you have. I can't see it
Until we polish
until
it.
we polish it.
That's really interesting.
And we don't know what's here
Right.
versus over there.
Sure.
What if they push the gravel down on this side and
It
not
could
the
look
other?
like two completely different floors.
Exactly. And that's happened.
Right.
Completely different floors in the same floor.
Exactly. Okay, next one. Okay, is that the same building?
That's from the upper area.
Oh, I love the old brick. It's
going down.
amazing. See, no other tile, nothing would pair as well with the old brick. I think it just is the right.
It was perfect for that setting.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Even the steel work they did it with that complemented the floor.
And all the cracks, it's just awesome. Okay, next one.
And that's the sealer on top.
The sealer on top.
So you can tell that I agree with them on this point. I think that was the look they wanted. They weren't going to get that reflection without it. But I don't normally like to do that. I like to go natural with the slab.
I almost liked it more natural better.
I do.
Yeah.
But that's
maybe because it's paired with the old brick. I mean, in some applications I do like the sheen, but in this one I kind of like the naturalness of it.
The thing with the sheen with a sealer though is that will fade back down.
Okay.
It will absolutely. A polished surface like Metropolitan will hold that sheen because it was polished correctly and the PSI was correct. So if you go in there right now, that photo will still be relevant.
But isn't polish also protection? Because I will tell people, because there was a period of time, everybody started out with polished granite surfaces, but when the granite first started to be so popular. And then people started saying, oh no, I want it more rustic, I want it honed or leathered, or now there's a new finish. But I will tell you this, polish is protection. So does the same thing hold true for you?
Sure.
Polish is protection.
Well, you're closing the pores of the surface, and you're also burning in minerals.
Sure.
So that would actually increase the PSI level at the surface. So yes, it absolutely seals.
Okay, next one. Okay, now where was this?
This was down in Belmar.
Okay.
They were starting an art gallery.
Okay.
And,
well, an art gallery seems like this would be
yeah,
a
it was
pair.
perfect actually.
Let's see what it looks like.
It was art and event gallery.
Okay, so this is the beginning.
Yeah, we just got there and we're setting
This looks
up.
new. This floor looks new to me, not old.
It's a new building.
Okay. But you didn't pour this. This was already there.
Right. It's a long strip of these buildings.
Okay.
And there's a brewery on the side and some other shops.
Okay, great. So this space was never finished.
No.
It was just sold that way, so you finished. This, love. I love this result. So tell me how you came up with this result. I love the charcoalness. So what did you do to make this look like this?
I ground it all the way to the same finish as, say, a Whole Foods, which is a high grit resolution. And then we actually soaked in black dye, diluted to get that effect. And then
so you can put a dye after something you could take a floor that's already cured and add dye to it.
Yes.
And get the pigment takes.
For sure, yeah.
Wow.
It's different. The look that you get from the truck when it's poured would be different than the look that you would get from a liquid dye.
Is it not as intense?
It's a little more matte from the truck.
See, but what I like about this is that it seems to me, and this sounds odd, but it's almost matte and shiny at the same time.
Right, like the dyes, the liquid will pick up the imperfections in the slab.
Sure.
While the dye in the truck will just blend monolithic.
I just think this is color, the visual interest, it's just spot on. It's really terrific. Okay.
That's another angle from the back to the front.
Sure. Wow.
And then now I can see the bulbs now. I know I'm finished.
When you can see the bulbs, because you've reached maximum.
Right.
Can someone go too far? It's like whipping cream and all of a sudden you've reached butter. Can you like overdo it in something that you get a bad result?
The only bad result is if they didn't want that sheen level.
It just keeps getting shinier and shinier.
It'll max out.
It doesn't break down or something after a certain point. You know what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely.
Does it get so shiny or so it's reached its potential that then it...
I've seen where people have tried to keep shining and it gets dull.
So it gets, okay, so I understand.
You reach a point and then...
Like a maximum.
Right.
So you look for that reflectiveness and then you know you're good to go.
Then I know I'm done.
Right. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Now this is the one we talked about, Surf Taco.
This one
I loved
was
it
very
before
extreme.
and how different it is. Okay, so it started out with, looks like a
that was a foyer that was just on the side, but it was pretty bad condition.
12 by 12 tile, okay.
And that was just, you could see that it wasn't an old board.
So let's look at right here. Those are the stones that were in it?
Those are stones at the surface. You could actually see where they troweled.
That's pretty in itself.
Yeah, everybody likes the aggregates that pop through. Sometimes they want more stone and they're not at the surface.
Yeah.
So I can't give them to them.
You can't give it if it's not there. Okay.
Right.
That's awesome. Okay, and this is a corridor.
This is a hallway going to the bathrooms.
You know, it's funny, it was all poured probably at the same time, but all the areas, even before you do anything to them, they all look pretty much completely different.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, and it just cleaned it up. I mean, it's probably a 1950s slab.
So you didn't add any color to this?
No.
The color comes up probably because, again, and also maybe because it's down the shore, the sand content?
The rock here definitely shows it's from the sand, but you can tell that was poured at a later time.
Okay.
With the from another truck.
Right.
But the enhancements from polish will grab the natural colors of the slab and pop them.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of the sand tones, and then you get to the gray tones where the newer concrete was poured.
Exactly. Okay. Now tell me what this was. This was before, right?
This is before up at the
counter. Now,
counter.
Did they do something? Did they put paint on the floor? What is this?
We counted about 7 or 8 layers of epoxy paint that kept peeling and failing.
Okay, so they didn't try to create this. This was like an end result of something.
This was them. They would roll paint on this about every year or so. And then the
You mean solid paint?
Roll on solid paint.
So this is the wear.
This is the wear.
Because it was supposed to be all maybe bluish or all, oh, I understand now.
And then it was tan, then it was
So it has like a tie-dye effect.
Exactly.
So you polished right on this with all the different colors?
I ground everything off.
Does that mean all the color came off then?
All of it came off.
Okay, and then what did we get next? Wow, it's like a completely different thing.
Now we got a clean, healthy surface that can breathe.
Yeah.
You know.
So you call the rocks the aggregate.
Yes.
I love that.
And you can see that that's a patch from a bag mix, and you don't know what's under there when you're dealing with it. Like there's another one there.
Is there more aggregate there because it is a patch? Because it seems like it's more intense, at least in that one part. Well, no, I guess not, because there's none on the other side.
Sometimes it depends on how they push the gravel down when they mix it.
Very nice. Do we have any more images? Okay, terrific. Well, we only have about a minute and a half left. If somebody's interested in doing their commercial space, Todd, or maybe their home, tell the viewers how they can reach you.
You would just go to Califon GLC.
Califon GLC, Green Living Concrete. Okay.
.com.
Wonderful.
And then fill it out, and I'll get the contact information.
Terrific. I just think this is amazing. It doesn't seem that a ton of people, at least on the East Coast, do what you do they?
It's definitely picking up popularity.
Is that because the industrial look is becoming more popular now?
That, and people are getting a little tired of dealing with the storms and the water and the traffic. That's a big factor now.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect, at least for your basement, it's a no-brainer.
For sure.
Right?
If you're doing a basement, for sure, there's no other way.
It's beautiful, it's practical, it's durable, it's not hard to
You just don't want to seal it. No matter what they do, you have to let it breathe. Because a lot of people will polish and then roll on a sealer like that job.
Right.
You can't do that in a basement. You have to just polish it naturally.
How about a garage floor? Do you ever do garage floors?
Lots of garage floors, sure.
Amazing. I think I'd like to have you look at my garage floor and do that.
Sure. We do a lot of stenciling also.
Oh, okay.
People have fancy cars and they like to stencil it.
Todd, this was amazing. I really like what you've done, and I'm anxious to work with you on our new project.
Oh, great.
And then what we'll do is we'll have you back after the restaurant is done. Thank you for being my guest.
Yeah, thanks for having me.